I'm Caroline. I've been here at Littlebridge House 20 years, and I am the bereavement coordinator now. Developed the service for bereavement over about 14 years. I've developed care plans for families so that we make sure that there's parity of care for the families, and I look after staff, and I often support staff in supporting the families when there's a bereavement and afterwards for many years. And I also organise events like Remembering Days, support groups, and sibling support bereavement weekends. The support starts very early on. Quite often it's when they first come through the front door, and we show them around the hospice. And I always encourage staff to show them the whole hospice, which is including this room, because actually, as you can see, this room is just like any other room, and in fact children have asked to stay in here, and they play in here sometimes, and we try to normalise difficult things here at the hospice. So when a family come very frightened and worried about coming to a hospice, some staff say, well, it's a bit too much, to show them into a room where the child could be dead. But I say, actually, how frightening is it to come to the hospice knowing that that room's there and not see it? And so I encourage them, if they're able, because you can't do things that you feel very uncomfortable about, but I ask them if they could please show them the whole hospice. And so many mothers may collapse in your arms in tears, or fathers, they find it difficult, but they're really relieved that they've seen the whole place and that there's no corner that's a bit frightening. This film is called Starborn. It's because a child, some people tend to feel that a star is born when a spirit is born. People have different belief systems, and we try to keep that as simple as possible and as real as possible to what it actually is, but some people elaborate on their and creatively make up reasons why what happens into the spiritual world. But Starborn is a sort of spiritual word for here, and the mums and dads loved the name so much that they actually call themselves the support group Starborn Dads and Starborn Mums. The room can be cooled. I don't know if the camera can see, but there is a cooling unit in the ceiling, and we're just about to have that replaced for a newer one because it's now a good 25 years old. And we can take the temperature down to about between 5 and 10 degrees. With the new one, we should be able to get it a bit cool, down to nearer 5, which keeps the body for a period of time, and that period of time it varies with how sick the child may have been. So we can use this room for families. It's a period of time to say goodbye. They see this room as a very special time that enables them to be able to say goodbye to their child, that if they didn't come to the hospice they wouldn't have. And it's vital. It's a vital time for many families to say time to just be with their child before they're taken properly away from them. A time to adjust to what's happened, and time to make plans. It's a time for goodbyes, and it's far more important than I ever realised. I thought the whole hospice, giving them respite, was essential and terribly important, but families tell me that actually, out of all the things we've given them, that just slowing down those few days after death, actually, and giving them in a beautiful place that feels that they're comfortable with and they know so well, and being looked after by people who know them so well and able to have those conversations with them is really, really important. When the child dies, quite often they've just been in rooms near here, and then we bring the child into this room once they've died and cool them down, and the quicker we can do that, the better. The siblings quite often if they're young, may be very matter-of-fact about death. It's actually the parents who may be struggling a great deal more with how they are, because the siblings have been a little bit exposed to all of this quite naturally most of their lives. And the sibling team will take them off and play with them, and sometimes have really difficult conversations up in messy play or in the Wendy house or somewhere completely out of the blue. It will suddenly, what has my sister had wrong with her? What is this? Or do you know anybody else had cancer? And quite often, out of the blue, they'll be making slime or something completely not related, and this little question would be burning away. And the sibling team respond very honestly and openly and straightforwardly to any question that we have. We try to put the right sort of support in at the right times, and all families are different, and all families need very different kinds of support. Some are grievers either grieve publicly or they grieve quite privately, and we try to respond to how they're feeling. When the family first arrive at the hospice, we, in amongst the time that the child is coming for respites and holidays, and we do all the things that we do, in amongst that there will be difficult conversations about how we're going to support the family, and have they thought about what they want to do when their child becomes terminally ill. And it's sometimes a huge relief for the families to have someone who they can actually say the terrible things that have been rolling around in their heads for a long time, worrying themselves, keeping themselves awake at night about what happens when and if, and how do we do this. So by the time we get to the palliative stage, we usually are quite far on in planning with some families. Some families don't want to talk to you, and that's fine, because we will have everything, we know how to do it. We do it a lot, and suddenly we can spin into action and say, well, we know you quite well now, and we know that you're quite private, would you like it this way? Or we know you've got hundreds of friends, and we can do it, we can help you with all these things with your friends, and bring in your vicar, or if we know they're religious by then, hopefully we know them, so we will be halfway there.
Do bereaved families return to the hospice?
Yes. Some don't, most do, and in all different ways. We have 2 remembering days a year, and they can choose which one they'd like to come to. One is geared up for, I talked earlier about the more public sharing mourners and the more private mourners. One is so just a day where they come and light a candle and go, but do it on their own in Doves. And the other one is a shared, where we have a shared remembering time, and then a shared Christian service. And that suits some people, and that's more formal, a day full of things that they don't have to do, but they do. Some families we don't hear from for a long time, and grief isn't something that you can just that doesn't go away. So sometimes somebody finds this bit of a surprise that it hasn't gone away, and it could be 10 years later, and I could get a call and somebody will say, I just need to come back, I need to come and look at the rooms, and I just need to re-engage with, and I need to be able to talk to somebody. So it could be a very delayed awareness that actually they need some help. And the same for siblings. Some siblings, quite young siblings, have rung me up and come back just to sort of catch up. And one visit sometimes is all it needs to be. But so that's right on the other extreme, whereas we have some people who just don't want to leave. And I've tried to arrange support groups in other places. But what's the values in coming back? The values in possibly needing to come back where their child could still be, or where their child was happy and where their child was loved and cared for, and somehow or other it seems to join up their grief. And it's also somewhere where they could say difficult things to us. You know, the staff are just able to take on a difficult conversation that family and friends can't have. family and friends tend to want their family members, quite rightly, to just get better and to move on. But for grieving people, especially if you've lost your child, that's near now impossible. And we understand that, accept that, and it's normal. And just normalising, I think normalising is a very important word here, because it's about, for the families who come for respite, they're amongst people and being normal with other children who are disabled. With grief, it's exactly the same, and they normalise their feelings. They think they're going bonkers in grief. Some people really, suffer terribly. They're not ill, they're just desperately sad. And finding somebody who goes, no, that's just like me, they go, oh, I see, I'm not losing my trolley. Because some family members will really worry about them and think, well, they should have got, it's 5 years, they should be better now, and put a lot of pressure on them to get better. There isn't a better. It's about accepting and about moving with it. And I think it's learning to do that's really hard. Especially if other people in your family are going, well, I'm going off to work, I'm getting on with it all, and you're not. Why are you still moping around? So finding others who feel like that is really important.
Is that something that the support groups help with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, the support groups are very hard to run. You have to you're trying to get them to talk to each other. You're not trying to fix anything. But they do all the work between them. If you get it right and you get them talking, it is just, oh, this. I'm okay. It's okay not to be okay. Once the child has been brought in here, we decorate the room. We put their name over here, and we'll make sure there's beautiful flowers brought in from the garden, and we may stick photographs or do all sorts of things like that. The following days we need to register the death and get a celebrant or a vicar or whatever the family need in that department to organise a funeral. And sometimes families don't have anyone and don't have a faith. And there have been times when we've done it. It literally can be from us doing everything to the family saying, no, we have all that at home, and the celebrant will be coming here and possibly taking over. But sometimes they don't know what any of that is. A lot of families are under a lot of pressure to do it a certain way, and when it's a child, it needs to be very special for that child. So we encourage families to actually celebrate the life of the child and not be under pressure to do something that's expected of them. Now that could be that they don't have much of a funeral. They may just want to, with a small baby, for example, go off somewhere on their own. And if that's what they want to do, we'd support them in that, and they do it. And it's really important that there isn't a look-alike funeral. So our funerals go from all extremes to the very formal to the really wacky. And I've done some incredibly wacky funerals over the years. We had a line of honour of motorbikes come, and I was actually told there was a Hells Angel convention on that weekend. All the local bikers came because this guy, the boy we were burying, loved the bikes. And we were in here having his funeral, and there was this revving out there, and I thought, oh no, the Hells Angels have heard about it. Literally, the whole of the forecourt was full of the bikers, and they went down to the funeral, down to the crematorium with him, and they did a guard of honour with all their bikes, so that all the exhaust and the coffin went through it. Brilliant, absolutely fabulous. Other times we've had a willow coffin, and the family went off and got all the foliage from their garden and decorated it themselves. They were thinking florists. They were thinking, they couldn't do that, but they could, because we know how to help them. They do it right for them. And that couple, they are gardeners, and so it was so right that their child went with their gardening. Another family, we had them decorating a coffin the coffin had all been painted blue, and then they put cherry blossom painting all over it. Well, they all said they weren't artists, but we were able to show them what marks to make the blossom. And that family were in there all day, and they'd all been fighting up to this point. They were quite a lively family, and there they were all together and having so many deep and meaningful conversations while they were doing it. So, we try to just find out what the family are. Another mother wouldn't bury her child, was all huddled up and not talking to us, and I had to go in and try and get her going. And I said, look, you can do anything. This is an opportunity to celebrate your child's life. What is it? What did he love? And I said, we even had someone make their coffin into a bath, and we put a towel over it and put taps on the end, and we can do anything. And she came out from under her duvet. She said, could you? And it was just such an amazing moment to actually free someone from a sort of gridlock of not being able to move or operate. So it's just finding out what we can do. We do all sorts. I mean, if they loved minions, and you couldn't put 100. You have to have 100 minions. You don't get one. And you can print them off and then put sticky back plastic on, and you can make stickers. So they could be covered in stickers. It's whatever anyone wants. We found we can do. There's a way. We talk to the funeral directors, liaise with them for the family if they want us to. We notify all the doctors and nurses and all the other people in the community if they want us to, because sometimes making those calls are really hard. We book. I often just say, just book them the time to register the death, because it's got harder and harder to get a slot. And you need to get on with doing some things. So quite often we say, well, we've done it for Tuesday, is that all right? We can always move it on. And they go, oh, such a relief. I didn't know, I didn't know how I was going to do all that. Or I didn't even know what you do. Because we don't naturally organise funerals every day, do we? So, our know-how is really helpful for the families who choose to come here. We also will liaise with, say, the church, or get the right music to the right place, or and the orders of service that the secretaries make about up to 100 orders of service as well, which is just taking another thing away from the family if they don't want to do it. But we do encourage them to do it as well if they're able to do it, and some get great solace out of putting it together. I mean, they choose what goes in it if we do it, but sometimes they do it and come up with something completely different to what we'd have done. So we're really just trying to enable the families to have it their way, which is often played at at funerals. I did it my way.